welcome to our little review show. I'm Benjamin Hernandez, and I'm here to talk about goodie but an oldie, Kingsburg. Kingsburg is one of my favorite games to come out pretty much from Fantasy Flight when they changed their logo from the red design to the blue design. It's been in my collection for a very long time, as indicated by the box wear and the mishandling of it over 2 moves and over a state worth of difference in those moves. But since then, I actually picked up the expansion for it, the Kingsburg expansion to Forge a Realm, and I put all my components and everything inside that game box these days in a very nice, organized fashion. Everything's got a baggie, everything's got a place, and it works out well. And the great part is, it makes it even more portable. Now, we're going to talk about what makes this game so great, but to do that, we're going to have to set it up. So let's get into that. So before Kingsburg's expansion came out, I would say that the box did a really good job about holding all its components, but it did feel a little sparse. The inserts were a little something to be desired, and overall the game felt like it could have been fit in a smaller package. Since the expansion, obviously I've been able to fit into the base box, or into the expansion box. So some people might do one, some people might do the other. But we're just going to take a look right now what comes in the base box first, and then we'll follow by the expansion. So to start with, we got a nice serviceable rulebook, no real pretty artwork on it, but it tells you every bit about the rules of the game, some of the errata that's included in this, and all the roles of the various people you'll be trying to influence throughout the game. Each player will receive a little card here. These are the base cards that come with the game. These have the 5 different rows of tech trees and the 4 different columns based on how much you build them out. Players, of course, will be gathering materials in the game, influencing people to get those materials, and start, expanding their empire by showing what they've built with their own player tokens. There's a few of these player tokens in the set. I've separated them all. You can ignore these shields as they come in the expansion. But each player will have 3 dice and a number of these tokens, and some score tracker tokens and stuff like that that go on the base board. Alright, so in Kingsburg, pretty much there's these different columns and rows of the technologies that you'll be building. In the base game, this is how you're going to be kind of divvying up your strategy. Usually you'll be filling about 2 or 3 of these rows out to their entirety, based on if you're looking for, a lot of money and victory points for the end game, the ability to generate and influence more people, the ability to defend yourself against monsters, the ability to adjust the militia influence that you control, and then also your building ability, or rather your ability to build more buildings, are kind of the main strategies of the game. Okay, so this is the board for the game, and I've put out some of the wooden bits that come with it. This is what I'd call about a medium-large board. For most board games. It's going to take up a lot of table real estate, especially with the player pads. So you're going to probably need a decent sized table to play this with a large group of people, especially if you're going with all 5. So we'll start with these little wooden bits down here and what goes on in the bottom of the board here. You've got 2 markers here that are purple for indicating the year and the phase, and then you've got this little King's Emissary guy. So what you're going to do is, as the game progresses, you're going to adjust the phase for different constructions, and then some sort of review phase. And this is going to repeat until you get down to, finally, winter, where you're going to flip over one of the monster cards that you drew for the year. There's 5 years in the game that you'll be playing, and each of the monster cards you only get 1 of for each year. So you get about 5 monster cards here. You shuffle them up. You'll pick 1 out. That's who everyone will be fighting for this turn. In this case, it's the goblins. They require a military strength of 3. Now, throughout the game, you'll be developing your military strength and influence by moving your player pawn along this track up here to indicate what it is, plus any benefits that you get from that. And whoever has the highest army will get a bonus from the king, and anyone who succeeds against a monster will usually get some sort of benefit, whereas people who fail against it will usually lose something like a building off their pad or various resources. So fighting the monster is definitely a strategy you want to keep up with. Game also comes with a number of wooden cubes, 3 different colors, one for gold, wood, and stone, which you will be getting for influencing out the various advisors up here. Every turn, players will roll their dice. Whoever has the highest will go last. That's what this little initiative pad is up for here. So the player who rolled the lowest will be able to go first by taking their dice that they rolled and placing them out on the number that they influence. In this case, you can split your dice up. Say I rolled an 11, I can go all the way up to 11, or I can put a 6 down, or I can put a single 5 down. But I have to wait until my next turn when everyone else gets to put their dice down before I can put my other dice out. And I can only choose to influence one person at a time, especially if there's the other players on them, then I can't influence them at all. So it's definitely kind of an area control element to this game. It's definitely a worker placement kind of way to play the game. The game also comes with a bunch of these little chips that give you +2 to your die roll on any of the dice that you feel like, but you can only use one of these per turn. But it is a benefit, saying if you rolled like the 11 here again, you can bump that up to a 13 and influence that guy instead. So that kind of brings up the 2 strategies of the game, whether you're going to put all your dice and try to roll high and get to the top tier guys that give you a lot of rewards, or if you're going to go and spread them out amongst the lower guys and get probably about the same number of rewards, but maybe a bit more choosy about what you actually get. So that's kind of the basis of what's going to come in the base game of Kingsburg. Again, you'll play 5 rounds, and whoever has the most victory points at the end from their buildings and whatever they've collected will win. Okay, so we're going to go into each of the advisors real quickly. Most of them will give you a resource such as gold, or gold and stone, or wood and stone, depending on how you do them. There's a few special ones on here that you got to worry about throughout the game. You've got your military influence, which increases your army number up by 1, which is very helpful when you're trying to fight a monster. You also have the alchemist here, which allows you to take one good and turn it into the 2 other goods. But you can only do that once during your turn, of course. But it is an interesting 2-for-1 deal. You've got the jack up here, or whatever he's called, who allows you to get one of any resource and a +2 chip. Usually one of the better things that's going to happen, hence he's lucky number 7. So it's going to give you a benefit for the immediate turn, and then probably something for a later turn. Then you've got this symbol here, the little pink flame. This allows you to peek at the monster for the turn. Normally, people aren't going to know what the monster is unless they get a chance to peek at it. So you're going to want to kind of see what people are building or what people are strategizing when they see the monster, and it gives you kind of a unique strategy to either choose to waste a turn trying to get that view, or to just hope for the best. You've got these ones here, which are either or. You've got the princess, which allows you to get much like the jack, except she gives you 2 goods instead of 1. You've got the thief up here, or the assassin, as I like to call him. You sacrifice the victory point, but you get 3 goods. Not a bad offer, but considering that victory points are kind of the thing that you're playing for, it's definitely a risky strategy. In this game, you're allowed to kind of go into negative victory points, so that is definitely allowed at any time during the game. Then you have the 2 grand poobahs here. You've got the queen and the king. The queen allows you to get 2 of any good, 3 victory points, and a peek of the monster. By far, a lot of people think she's the most powerful person in the game, as she gives you the most benefit. And the king lets you get pretty much every resource on the map, but of course you gotta spend usually all your dice to do this. Throughout the game, you're going to be able to get a few interesting little benefits, usually like farms or have the least number of buildings at the beginning of your turn, and that's what these white dice are actually used for. If you have any reason to use these, you'll add these to your own dice, but they have to be placed with the other dice that you own. So if I roll a 5 and a 1, I can move it to a 6 with my own colored dice, but I can't put this dice out on its own. So that's something to keep an eye out for when you're playing the game. Okay, so we're going to talk about the 5 modular player expansions that come with the game. It's a very Euro expansion, so they allow you to basically choose 5 of these different modules to add to your game at a time, or you can add them collectively all together, or whatever combination you want. So we're going to go into there and break this down. So the first thing that comes up is the new player boards. These are much larger, adding a whole nother row basically to the other side of them, giving you yet two more strategies to play with. This one, the sawmill, the quarry, and all that stuff, and the mint is another way to gain more resources and to trade things around. Whereas the improved defenses and other stuff is just another way to change your military strategy. I really like these as the base game goes. These are replace the base game for me. These different strategies, some people argue that some of them are more powerful or less powerful, but ultimately it comes down to how you're playing the game and what you're getting at the time. So definitely up there for my favorite part of the expansion. One thing that I see here, which is an auto include, are these chips that they add. These could be poker chips or otherwise, but actually this is something that players were doing in the base game that they implemented into the expansion. There are 6 of these chips, and you will choose every year one of these 5 to represent your army for the turn. And then at the end of the game, you will get a number of victory points equal to the number that you did not use. So you got basically 1s, 0s, a 2, a 3, a 1, and a 4. So that's 2 1s, a 0, a 2, a 3, and a 4. So when you don't use the 4, you're going to get 4 victory points at the end of the game. Every house has these now. And like I said, these were originally done like poker chips or otherwise. In the base game, you would actually have to end up rolling the king's die every turn, and it'd be a result somewhere between 1 and 6, and that's how much the support the kingdom would give you for that turn. This allows you to basically selectively choose how strong your military is for that turn, and also to use that for a benefit of gaining points. However, a lot of times what's going to happen is a lot of people are going to try to get that 4-1, but the fact that the strategies are so diverse, it allows you to choose how many points you want to get for the end game based on these chips. Now, what's a good game without a little randomosity, right? This was what these little cards represent. These are the random events that you'll draw one of every turn. And really and truly, that's about all they do, is they come out, they do their thing, then they go away. It's an interesting implementation into the game. I personally don't play with it as often as I think I should. But if you're looking for a little bit more randomosity in your game, this is a good way to kind of change it up. These random events can vary from really good to really bad, usually either affecting the creature or people's resources or dice rolls. And it's kind of a good way to shake it up if the game's gotten a little too samey for you, and if people are playing the same strategies a lot.
Alright, in this expansion content, they call it the roll cards. These are special cards that can be dealt out or distributed to players in any fashion you want to give them a unique power for the year, or a unique power every turn they roll the dice, or a unique power just at the end of the game. These basically are just ways of giving people asymmetric player powers, which is something that's definitely a benefit in the game. It adds a little bit of randomosity in there, but not too much, and adds only 1 or 2 small mechanics to each player. So I definitely recommend playing with these. I usually do the shuffle and then deal everyone 3, have them choose 1. That gives them some variety, and it's going to help change your game up every time you play. I definitely recommend playing with this. And there's also a blank one if you decide to make your own characters, which can also be fun. Alright, perhaps this is the most odd of part of the expansion that I actually haven't played much with. These are optional buildings. Instead of playing with your typical player mat, you can actually see up in the side here the color and letter that they're associated with and place them on your player map instead of what you were playing with. The recommendation is that you play with maybe everyone getting 1 or 2 of these, or having the option to do them. Or you can have a game where somebody can selectively draft these for victory point conditions, or take a hindrance to themselves in order to gain these. But they'll pretty much refill every building on your sheet. It's kind of insane. I don't know if personally I play with these as often as I would like, but I can definitely see where these are pretty cool. I've looked into the strategies associated with them, and again, it just adds a bunch of different diversity to the game. So I do recommend trying these out. Maybe not playing with them all the time, especially if you're with a newbie crowd. But when you get a few people that have played Kingsburg a lot, this is going to really help you in the replayability. And like I said, in that rule book, there's a different way, or there's different ways of making sure everyone gets a fair shot about the ones they want. So make sure you keep that in mind when you start your initial setup for the game. And that's about all there is for the Kingsburg expansion, which I still deem as definitely something you should pick up if you like the base game.
All right, so back when I first started board gaming, I picked up Kingsburg, and it really got to me for what it was, a great chance to roll some dice, to screw some friends over, and to really make informed decisions on what strategies to play with. It was kind of, in a weird way, like my first Euro game, even though it's not completely all that Euro. It's definitely one of those things I'm going to keep in my collection, and I recommend to a lot of people. I know that a few other games have come out, including Alien Frontiers, which is also a rollable dice placement game. But really and truly, this theme sticks really well. You are building an empire, and you're trying to keep it going and keep it safe from invaders while trying to appease a king. And sadly to say, it is one of those games that kind of needs the expansion for it. The base game was fine in my opinion, but the randomness of the king's support really kind of hindered the gameplay and made it less tactile, or tactical, I should say. Uh, Not to mention all of the things that it adds, such as even more buildings, more options to play around with so you can build a better strategy, and the ability to choose a various role card at the beginning of the game that benefits you throughout the entire experience. Really makes for unique gameplay and enhances that replayability a lot more than the base game did. That being said, I'm probably still going to keep this game in my library as long as I am able to. I'm probably going to upgrade the components one day as well. Um, it's got a very solid set of mechanics that have withstood the time that's been in my collection. It's always given me a good experience when I pull it out with my friends. It doesn't get as much play as it used to these days, but that doesn't mean it's still not a great game. You can still probably find this at most of your local friendly game stores. I think in total with the expansion, you should be able to pick it up about $80. I know that the expansion is definitely worth it, just for those extra bits that they add to it. However, if you're looking for something a bit more modern and at the same price, definitely look at Alien Frontiers. That's the obvious comparison that you can give it. I'm not saying it's necessarily a better game. It's got its own quirks and flaws as well. But this one has a lot of things that mitigate and change the luck, and I feel that you get a lot more choices in your decision making in that game, honestly. I know I'm going to get a lot of flack for that, but I also own Tori Neiman's other design, which is Pay Dirt, and I adore that game as well for the same choices it makes you make in that game. But that one's much more of an auction game than it is a dice rolling game. So Kingsburg on itself, I would give it about a 6 or a 5. Its replayability really is diminished, depending on how many times you play it with. And it really and truly it is a game for 4 players. 3 is too little and 5 almost seems too much. Now, that being said, though, when you get into the expansion and really add it to it, it really elevates that up to like a solid 7 or 8 for me. Because there's so many different strategies to try. Then you got the various role cards, which make the game new and exciting every time. And not to mention, there's just some fun in there about rolling the dice and trying to figure out what you can do for that turn. I mean, yes, some of the low-end decisions are a little weaker, but you get to make more of them as compared to getting those high dice rolls. And a lot of people argue that that's not fair, but I feel that the two balance each other out very well. So, that being said, again, the artwork is pretty good. It works, it's very serviceable. The board and components are great. I have to say that the wooden bits are, well, generic, serviceable. And the dice, however, I know people are probably going to get a little iffy because dice are always a point of contention with gamers. You're either going to want to replace them with some other dice if you like plastic, or you're going to love them for the wooden bits and keep them. I know there's also a company out there that offers premium dice for this game. I haven't checked them out myself, but I wouldn't mind receiving a copy of those someday. as those also come with some extra rules for the various houses of the game. So go out there, see if you can still find this game before it goes out of print or anything. I know Fantasy Flight still makes this game, I believe, so give it a check out. Kingsburg.